This year's World Knowledge Forum calls us to a new odyssey, a collective journey through a greatest transition in energy sector, sparked by climate, AI, and shifting geopolitics. As we confront these global challenges, success will depend on fresh thinking and bold action. To help us navigate, we brought together leading experts ready to offer new paths forward. My name is Hong-ik Oh, our today's moderator. I serve as Vice Chair, a working party under the OECD Regional Policy Committee, and work at the Korea's Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, and Transport. We are fortunate to have esteemed experts joining us. First, I'm honored to introduce Mr. Shin-hak Chul, Vice Chairman and CEO of LG Chem. Under his leadership, LG Chem has become a global leader in science and advanced materials, driving innovation in clean tech and sustainability across industries. Next, we welcome Mr. Jens Orfeldt, Executive Vice President and Regional President for Offshore Development at RWE Renewables in Asia Pacific, whose work sits at the forefront of renewable energy deployment in the region. We are also joined by Dr. Anil Achyuta, partner at Energy Impact Partners Frontier Strategy, where he spearheads global investments in early-stage climate tech startups. Lastly, Mr. Murali Subramanian brings over 2 decades of experience in energy and power leadership across India, and now focuses on cutting-edge solutions in green ammonia and green hydrogen. Today's session explores the rapid growth and critical challenges facing clean tech. Investment and innovation are accelerating worldwide, but supply chain disruptions and geopolitical issues continue to threaten progress. Our central question is, how can the clean tech sector solve its most complex problems and truly power the future? Let us begin with a presentation from Mr. Shin-hak Chul, who will share a perspective on the present and future of clean tech.
As you see there are a lot of geoeconomic, geopolitics in play at the moment. As you know, the United States decided to leave the Paris Agreement for the second time in 8 years. That happened several months ago, as you all know. While this move of the United States had been somewhat anticipated, we think it still carries a significant weight all around the world. However, despite the administration's withdrawal from Paris Agreement, many U.S. organizations are choosing to redouble their commitment to combat climate change, including America is all in, that's the name of the initiative in the United States, which is a coalition of over 8,000 mayors, governors, and business leaders who continue to push forward with climate commitments. Globally, the U.S. withdrawal has not triggered a mass exodus yet from the Paris Agreement by other nations. In Europe, while the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, or CSRD, forces challenges, many public and private entities are rallying to defend it. China is charging ahead with unprecedented level of investment in renewable energy, and recently China formed a joint front with the European Union, who is loosely replacing the role of the United States in this endeavor to cajole China and work with China to fulfill the notion of decarbonization, to continue to charge ahead with climate commitment. In the meanwhile, International Energy Agency predicts that the global clean tech market will triple to $2 trillion by 2035. For this economic reason and other reasons, countries now realize that their future depends on their ability to transit into clean energy. Despite these fragmented market approaches, one thing is quite certain. Cleantech continues to evolve in ways that address the inherent limitations of renewable energy, its intermittency, its inefficiency in certain contexts, and its challenges in achieving economic viability at scale. Three technologies in particular are emerging as game changers: hydrogen, small modular reactor or SMR, which many of you are already familiar with. The one which is probably less widely understood and known is long duration energy storage, or LDES. LDES represents a significant leap beyond conventional energy storage systems. While traditional lithium-ion based ESS has been rapidly commercialized, it is typically limited to providing reliable discharge for around 4 hours. LDES, by contrast, can deliver electricity for 10 hours or more, which is dramatically enhancing grid stability and grid resiliency. This extended capability makes LDES especially effective in pairing with renewables such as solar, wind, and hydropower, capturing energy when it's generated and making it available precisely when it's needed. In other words, LDES helps bridge the gap between intermittent supply and consistent demand. What is more, the cost dynamics are shifting in its favor. According to a recent report, certain LDES technologies such as summer storage and compressed air energy storage already exhibit lower capital cost per kilowatt hour than lithium-ion systems. For example, summer storage averages around $232 per kilowatt hour and compressed air at around $293, compared to approximately $304 per kilowatt hour by lithium-ion systems. Taken together, these advances point to a future in which renewables, reinforced by LDES and SMR, can deliver reliable, affordable, and low-carbon energy at scale on a global basis. The rise of artificial intelligence, or AI, and the explosive growth of data centers are reshaping global capacity in electricity. Industry forecasts suggest that data centers could account for a double-digit share of national power consumption in key markets within this decade. For technology leaders, securing stable and sustainable power is no longer optional. It is essential to their business continuity and their climate commitment. This is why global technology companies are increasingly stepping ahead of governments and traditional utilities by investing directly in next-generation clean tech. For them, it is not only about meeting net zero pledges, but also about ensuring long-term access to reliable, affordable, carbon-free electricity. Take the example of Google. In collaboration with Energy Dome, the company recently invested in innovative CO2 battery technology. This system captures carbon dioxide, compresses it, and then expands it to generate power, essentially using CO2 as a closed-loop working fluid. The advantages of this technology are compelling. It offsets the intermittency of renewable power, provides continuous electricity supply for 8 to 24 hours, delivers low construction cost compared to conventional solutions, supplies round-the-clock energy with zero emissions, and avoids dependence on critical minerals. These attributes make CO2 batteries a strong contender to become a mainstream long-duration energy storage solutions around the world. More broadly, the example illustrates a critical trend. Big tech firms are becoming key catalysts in scaling up advanced clean tech, driven both by necessity and also by opportunity. If I can predict the Cleantech going forward, I'd say there are 5 things that we must do on a global basis by any institution. I think first is to realize that climate change and climate action necessary are irreversible. We can hem and haw a little bit, we can delay a little bit, we can tinker with regulation, but at the end of the day, this has to be irreversible trend. And institutions alike, industry, government, and otherwise, has to realize this and should be prepared accordingly. Secondly, it's all about leadership. Whoever leads the organization, whether it's a business organization or even a government institutions, the leadership is the key in moving this forward. This is not done by consensus building or democracy, if you will. So the strong leadership to make it forward, especially at a time of slow growth, at a time of difficult economic situation, is the key. It's not going to happen without strong leadership at all levels. And also, we must find a solution whereby decarbonization can coexist with growth. One may be necessary, but not sufficient without the other. We cannot just make our whole operation carbon-free and see the company go belly up, or vice versa. So this is a time that we must find the equation of the end, not the equation of either or. It's not the either or question, the growth versus decarbonization is an end. And I can tell you in LG Chem, we are proving that there are not just one, but many equations that make this end equation possible. The other thing is, in all this endeavor, clean tech innovation is the only way. Technology solution, I think, is the only way to move things forward. So furthermore, importance in continuing development in clean tech innovation. AI is a huge factor in this. I think we'll have a big discussion today about how AI is affecting the clean tech. So I'll not mention too much about AI, but those are some of the things that I have in mind going forward. Just a couple more minutes. Here is LG Chem's clean tech approach. Within this clean tech global transformation, LG Chem is accelerating our own transition toward low carbon, high value businesses as the foundation of sustainable growth. This is not merely a matter of choice, it is a matter of survival. Traditional chemical companies, with their energy intense and carbon heavy operations, face an increasingly unforgiving reality. To remain competitive, we must fundamentally reimagine our business model. Let me talk about just a couple of things very briefly. The first is the dry reforming of methane, or DRM. This proprietary process converts captured CO2 mixed with methane into syngas, which can be converted into the other feedstock for plastics. We are now commercializing DRM technology, probably at scale the largest in the world. As the first company in Korea to commercialize DRM with our own technology, we are building a competitive edge that aligns with the global push for carbon neutrality. The second initiative that we have is HVO, or hydro-treated vegetable oil. Produced from renewable sources such as used cooking oil, this HVO material significantly reduces greenhouse gas emissions compared with fossil fuels. We are turning this waste veggie oil into, for example, sustainable aviation fuel, bio-based naphtha, and bio-based other feedstocks. So we completed the pilot plant for this operation last year. So my key takeaway here to conclude today's remark, first, next generation clean tech is indispensable in the age of AI. As data and computing needs accelerate, technologies such as SMR and long duration energy storage, or LDES, are proving critical to overcoming the limitations of renewables, which ensures stable and affordable power while reducing exposure to geopolitical risks in energy supply. Second, clean tech is no longer optional. It is becoming a foundation of competitiveness. From big tech to global industry leaders, companies are investing not only to achieve climate goals, but also to secure energy and economic security. This competition is shaping the future of our global economy, and it is a race in which LG Chem is determined to lead. Thank you.
We have just heard from Vice Chairman of LG Chem about the global trends of clean tech and how global companies like LG Chem is responding and shaping the future. Now, let's move to our discussion. Today, there are many guests who are considering clean tech as their promising career. To get started, could you, each panelist, briefly share a moment when you first recognized the transformative potential of this clean energy in your career? Can you start?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I think for me, I think it was the moment where Paris Agreement was reached finally in 2015. There was a lot of talk before, not enough action. I think there was kind of the milestone agreement by all nations, almost all nations around the world, at least to do something about this CO2, having some kind of force measures in every 5 minutes in the form of voluntary declaration of their desired reduction target. One formula that went into that is you cannot decrease your target, you can only go up. So I thought, among many other things, I think there was the time that I sat down and thought about the future in 10, 20, 30, 50 years from now. There's a new era in terms where finally mankind realized that global temperature cannot just continue to go up. We have to do something. And I think that was the defining moment for me to know more about clean tech, to do something about clean tech, and more importantly, I started thinking about how business can take advantage of it.
Mr. Orfa?
Wow. And can I just say that speech here was a bit of a mic drop. I think that was very, very impressive. So I just wanted to really commemorate that. I mean, I'm a child of the late 80s, so sort of grew up in the 80s. I was born in '79, and for that reason, Michael Jackson was one of my heroes. And he has a song that's called "Man in the Mirror," and I think that's for me is a bit of a figure image throughout my life. You know, I wanted to start with the man in the mirror, start with myself, and I always knew I wanted to be part of something that was bigger than myself, paying back to the community. I started my career as a criminal prosecutor thinking that's a good way to pay back to community. It gets pretty dark and pretty depressing, so I thought, well, maybe I don't want to do that my entire career. And then I eventually, after having a stint as a civil lawyer for a while, got sucked into the energy business and thinking, here's a real opportunity to be part of a community that where you need all walks of life. You need lawyers, you need people who know about bird migration, you need engineers, you need people who know about PR. So it's basically a small representation of a smaller community doing something for the wider community that really resonated with me. So I think that's probably not a single moment, but more of a sort of guiding sort of North Star for me.
Mm-hmm. Job change is recommended. Okay.
I mean, for me, I think it was watching Elon Musk on Tesla from far gave me some motivation on how climate companies can also be very exciting companies, make money and also help the environment. But we cannot talk about clean tech without talking about China. All roads lead to China. And when I made my first investment, happened to be in a Chinese company building flying cars. And I saw these guys build the technology from almost zero to getting approval in a matter of 5 years. And to me, when I saw this kind of top tier talent execute on a mission at an unprecedented pace, that's when it really raises the hair on your arms. And it made me feel like, okay, if the top talent is coming together to solve this problem, I should do something more.
Thank you.
Hello. In my case, it wasn't some of the things that was mentioned before this. For me, it was plain and simple. I used to work in large hydro and large thermal. And in 2011-12, when the government of India started programs to encourage renewables, this was the perfect entrepreneurial moment for me. I could step out on my own, build my own company, because we didn't need huge amounts of capital at that time. A small amount of money was enough to start your own company. And so that's how we started. We started building small biomass projects, raised more money, built some wind projects, built some solar projects, raised more money, and that journey continued from there. So for me, it wasn't a sudden moment. I think it was just a business opportunity. And it was clear that eventually we'll get to where we are. And as some of the other panelists said, in 20 years from now, this will be the default.
Thank you for your answers. And next question is also for all panelists. That is, could you turn to next page? Okay. What is today's most disruptive clean tech innovation, and which sectors stand to gain most by 2035? Let's start from Doctor.
No, I think HC answered the question. I don't think we need to discuss this.
Really?
Really.
Yeah.
Should we talk about this?
Yeah. You can emphasize some sector.
I don't know. I mean, there's so many interesting things, right? I mean, like what I see you saying, it's not or, it's really and, right? There's so much good innovation happening in the storage side. There's so much good innovation happening in the material side on carbon capture. AI is really taking us to the next level on materials discovery. I'm sure LG Chem has like 10 projects on various AI-based discovery. It's very hard to pin down and say, this is one disruptive innovation. Maybe if you were to ask me, if you were to squeeze my neck, I will say, I don't know, maybe sodium ion is one interesting technology that's really sort of taking the next level on grid scale energy storage. The cost, seems to be coming even slightly lower than LFP, depending on where you see and what you see. So, I would pick sodium ion, which is, the question is in 5 years, right? Or 10 years.
10 years.
I'd still stick with sodium ion.
Okay. Mrs.
Yeah. The way I'd respond to this question is, what is the mechanism that enables disruptive clean tech? There are, as the panelists have said, there are several clean tech innovations happening. But what is the driver for this innovative, these disruptive movement? And for me, this is to begin at the very top, which is commitment from government, and then policy stability to enable this. So as I mentioned, in 2011-12, the government of India said, we will give long-term PPAs. It's okay if the price is high to begin with, but over time, the expectation is the price will come down. Because of long-term PPAs, a lot of power purchase agreements, a lot of activity went, and today the price of electricity has dropped. Similarly, the government of Korea today, through a CHPS program, is giving long-term contracts for procuring low-carbon fuel. And once somebody gets a 15-year contract, in the back end, a lot of, this stability ensures a lot of money goes into disruptive technologies to get there. And to specifically answer this, the most disruptive, at a larger level, not at a very granular level, I think long duration storage is going to be very, very fundamental. Because once that happens, or already the price of power in many parts of the world is lower than natural gas or coal. So since the basic cost of power is already lower, it's now the cost of time shifting, from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. What is that? How expensive is that? So today with lithium ion, it's a certain cost. With long duration storage, if this comes down, then suddenly, we would have jumped the cliff and it'll be clean power all going ahead. So reduce intermittency by having long-term storage is cheap storage would be the most disruptive thing.
How long is long?
I think 10 hours is a good start.
What about 100?
10 years. Oh, really? Okay, next, yes or Pat?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough crowd to follow, but I would definitely say AI, right? And in that sense, in terms of energy optimization, I come from let's say, a power producer, utility point of view. What we can do to stabilize grids and to improve energy efficiency. I had the pleasure of being here in Korea just a week ago, talking at another conference where the theme was also AI. There was a representative of Nvidia who made the claim that it's not the technology that is preventing us from driving fusion, but it's actually the compute power that will, the next step that will allow us to get there. And if I would make a bold statement, by 2035, if we could be closer to cracking the fusion not through using AI, I think that would be extremely innovative.
The fusion is not cheaper.
It's not necessarily cheaper, no, that's true.
Neither is fission.
Come again?
Neither is fission.
No, and that's why I think it's also very important to focus on the existing technologies. There's a lot of talk about hydrogen, there's a lot of talk about SMRs. What I would say we need to do now is to focus on existing technologies and to really get that happening. And you mentioned also that there's a, let's say, a decline in the political appetite in the US. I think the rest of the world, what do we do when someone steps down? Do you equally step down or do you double down? And I think it's all about making sure that governments like Korea, elsewhere, that you have the right political frameworks and the right political ambition, and let's say that will enable the industry to take off, right? So what I would like to see is more government action in saying, okay, we want these technologies, we stand by our NDCs, and now we're going to show the world that Korea and other markets is open for business, because that's really what we need.
Mr. Shin, do you have answer?
Yeah, I think I agree with all panelists here. As we all know, the cost of renewable energy has come down dramatically in recent years. I don't know about more slow, but it is dramatically coming down, almost at the level of parity in some countries like China, in case of solar, in some part of China, not all. So the price is coming down dramatically. However, what renewable energy has not overcome yet is this issue of intermittency. It's a big issue. You know, wind is not blowing at the site that you need electricity. In fact, it could be quite opposite. So this issue of energy storage will continue to be the cornerstone of decarbonization and clean tech. Limitations with current technology and some of the ideas around long duration energy storage clearly, I think, is a winning technology going forward for not only many years, but many decades in my view. I also mentioned some possibility in CCU. There's a direct air capture. How can you capture CO2 from the smokestack of, say, POSCO mills, and then turn it into useful material, like a syngas or like plastics? Significant progress has been made in many institutions, academia, and companies like us. I think we are getting close. The key there is the energy equation. You need energy to make the reaction happen. So to the extent that we can continuously work on areas like catalyst technology, which is the key to make the whole thing happen, that will be a great technology that will come to fruition in not long future from now, is what I think. I think third technology, I think, is AI. AI not as a standalone technology, but as an enabling technology that enables everything. Enables energy storage, enables, everything. So AI clearly is the key going forward. And last, we cannot talk about decarbonization, at least without mentioning nuclear power or SMR. So I think those are kind of well-known clean tech that we all talk about. Hopefully we can make some great strides in any one of those areas to make some progress.
Thank you for your answer. Dr. Chiuta, you have a lot to say today, so I prepared a question for you. What is your answer for this?
I think most of us get the timing wrong. It's
timing.
very difficult to say what's going to happen in 5 years and 10 years. What I will say though is, I think there's a lot of talk about AI, but there are two areas that I'd like to highlight that are upcoming, and I think in about 10 years or so, things will be very different. One is in geothermal, specifically a technique called enhanced geothermal technique. Basically, it's a form of fracking, and you can go deep down in the earth and get really high efficiency. And the levelized cost numbers are, projected about 5-10 years in about $45 per kilowatt hour. This is super low. And Fervo Energy, which is not a portfolio company of ours, I think is really changing the landscape in that space. So enhanced geothermal, right, is one innovation that every one of us should be paying attention to, every single one of us. The second technology that really moves the needle for the world is a primary source of energy called geological hydrogen. So deep down in the earth, there are these very high iron-rich rocks. And when these iron-rich rocks react with steam or water, they produce hydrogen naturally. So you can equate this to something like a nuclear fission or a fusion or geothermal, like a primary energy. So one of our portfolio companies pioneered this approach called Coloma. And watch out for this company. It is going to be, if there is a company that's going to be worth more than $50 billion, it's going to be this company.
So you mentioned two sectors. One is geothermal, the other is geological hydrogen.
And what kind of volumes are there in this geological hydrogen in terms of ability to extract at a reasonable sort of way?
Let's say it's on the scale of oil and gas.
The scale of oil and gas. Wow.
Oh, your answer is quite eye-opening. And next question, one of important question of today's discussion. With the recent shift in U.S. energy and climate policy favoring traditional energy and adjusting support for clean technologies, how is clean tech industry adapting to new regulatory and market conditions globally? Maybe Mr. Shin has a lot to say to us.
Not sure a lot to say, but obviously policy changes according to the government is changing. The U.S. is changing here, it's changing in Japan, and government changes, they favor to change policies. I mean, rightfully so. So we cannot entirely blame all these policy changes. It's not just the United States, if you think about it. So I think we have to take it for granted somewhat. Yes, policy changes back and forth. It has changed in the past, and it will continue to change in the future, depending on who is in the regime. So, but even with that consideration, the U.S. Position has been rather dramatic in the second term of Trump administration. So we all get it. And the context of your question, how is the clean tech industry looking like under this new landscape? Well, I think my answer to that is it is not something that one country or one administration can dictate for good. It has been ingrained into the industry, into public life, into the decades of regulatory regime. So, and there are states, there are businesses, there are companies. So there are so many stakeholders that has a say about the future of energy and the policy. That it will be very difficult to turn the direction of this Titanic overnight. So I'm not saying that it's impossible. I'm not saying that U.S. policy is not clear. It's very clear. Drill, baby, drill, and many others. Yeah, I get that. However, I don't think they say that to the complete exclusion of the others. I don't think they say, well, stop all the, hydrogen efforts, stop all CCU investments, stop all. No, it's not. I think it's a matter of the portfolio. So they have energy portfolio that comprises maybe some drilled oil, maybe some other renewable energy, and so forth. So I think the portfolio of energy mix will change from the past to the future, but there will always be a mix. If you look at any country and ask them what we call fuel mix, it's not just one, source of energy. So I think that energy mix may change, but some of this technology progression, I think, will continue. And there are areas like the businesses that are committing to bring more innovation to bear. And I talked about America's All-In initiative, and there are others. There are movements like First Movers Coalition. There are movers like CEO Climate Change Leadership. So there are many other forces that come into play in addition to one government dictating what the future of energy should look like, in my view.
Wind power generation is also affected by policy shift. What is your answer?
Absolutely, and I think the answer to what I would say, I think we need to get Cleantech back on the global agenda, right? 3-4 years ago, that was all we were talking about in Davos and here and elsewhere. Thankfully, we're having this conversation right now that gives me some comfort, but it feels like we're more talking about trade restrictions. We're talking about sovereign interest rather than more globalization. We're talking about cost of electricity rather than acknowledging the fact that climate change is undeniably real. I live in Tokyo. The average temperature for August this year is 2.67 degrees over average. That's the highest ever recorded. The year before it was 1.79 over average. So I definitely see a trend that the cost of not taking action is going to be far greater than taking action. And if we set aside the US for a second, governments need to realize that, one, that carbon emissions doesn't care about borders. So we shouldn't be taking a self-protectionistic approach about it. We shouldn't be too preoccupied with local content requirements, so on and so forth. We should have a level playing field where it's simply easy to invest. It's easy for a need to find new venture capitalist opportunities, and it's easy for me to deploy existing technologies that will contribute not only to the decarbonization of economies, but also to reaching a greater energy security and energy independence level. If you look at Korea, for instance, we've got an 85% plus dependence on imported fossil fuels, and so also for global competitiveness, we need to take action, and I think that's something that we would like to see, clear commitments that transcend beyond single terms of presidencies or prime ministers.
Doctor, you are from Boston. You have something to say about this question.
I don't know. I mean, I think investors will always look for better unit economics. I would start from there, right? We would invest in companies which have high potential for very large margins and high growth with competitive unit economics. If you start from there, then I think the policy stuff will follow. So I don't like following policy.
Yeah.
I don't care, actually. I really care about unit economics of technologies.
Yeah.
And like HC said, it's always an and every country has their own sort of agenda, and I'm sure it's going to swing back, and it's going to be like a cycle, right? So I wish everyone had the same kind of empowerment like what the Biden government did in terms of for climate, but that's short-lived. It's very hard for that level of commitment to stay for anyone.
Okay.
I have a different view. So what's happening? I'll give you the example where we are currently living through this. For the last several decades, India continues to import natural gas for their fertilizer program because we need a lot of fertilizer for our crops. Just a year ago, the government said, okay, let's procure some green fertilizer, green ammonia, to make our fertilizer, and let's see what happens. So today, if we were to land imported ammonia into India, the price is around $500 a ton. And it goes up and down depending on Ukraine or something else, right? So the government called an auction, and the price that was discovered, to the surprise of everyone, was $600, only $100 more. The auction called by Europe about a year and a half ago, the Hindco tender, they landed a price of $900 a ton. So suddenly, India being a low-cost country, the price discovered is $600, of course with some government support, but $600, a long-term supply in Indian rupees. If you correct for two things, if you correct for the rupee, which depreciates against the dollar year on year, over the next 10 to 15 years, this price is actually lower than the international price of ammonia, fossil fuel ammonia. Secondly, if you look at the taxation in India, if you cover for that, it's actually cheaper. So what the government of India has done is they've discovered a price of green ammonia for the fertilizer sector, which is actually cheaper than fossil fuel ammonia. And why is that? Because they said, we will give a long-term contract for 20 years. Come and build. The fact that this policy statement was made immediately ensured that people in the back end work to figure out how a price can be delivered, which can match gray ammonia. I'm not saying that the gray ammonia price tomorrow will not fall. It may fall again because Qatar will decide that we need to drop the price of gas. Something will happen. But the fact is, government policy is very important for this sector, and this also sort of feeds into the other political considerations, which is energy security, job creation locally, and those kind of considerations.
But
So
what
that's my
happens if Modi goes away and some new guy comes in and changes up the rules?
Good point. So this happened in Spain, right? So when Spain came out with a lot of renewable power program in between 2005 and 10, and then the crisis happened I think in 2011-12, Spain went back on many of their renewable contracts. Thankfully, the courts in India, that happened in India as well, but thankfully the courts in India held that once a contract is signed, it has to be honored. And so although many state governments in India went back and said, oh no, we will not pay, it's too high, it's this and that, eventually they all came under the rule of law. And each and every renewable contract, however high priced it was when it was initially signed, each and every one of them is being honored today. So I think that's a matter of the way the country works. I can't speak for the Biden administration or for the US,
No.
but I can speak about India, that the courts have honored the rule of law.
My only point is, if one invested in a technology, thermodynamics has its rule, right? Ultimately, thermodynamics wins. So if your conversion efficiency of hydrogen, right? If it's for alkaline, 42 kilowatt hour per kilogram, something like that. It has to come down to about 10. So if you don't do that, if the innovation does not drive it, then you let policy changes drive the market up and down, and it has a huge effect on the economy. So I always bet on companies with better unit economics from the first principles. I'm not saying that's the only way to do it. It makes me feel better as an investor.
Okay, Mr.
I
Russell?
would agree with you that we need, as an industry who works in clean tech, whatever the asset is, we need to every day single-handedly work towards making sure that our investment is simply not only the right thing to do from a sustainability point of view, but it's also the right thing to do from an economic point of view. I think, yes, we absolutely have an obligation there, but I would agree. So we're engaged in all kinds of clean tech. We're also still a conventional power producer, but for offshore, for instance, for markets like Japan and Korea, where onshore PV solar is saturated because it's mountainous, it's very difficult to roll out grid. Offshore is one of the few existing technologies that is price competitive with the alternative, which would be nuclear, and that is a viable technology you can deploy tomorrow if you wanted to, right? And there we simply say we are extremely dependent on policy because you've got defense policies, you've got the ministries of finance, you've got environmentalists. So you need all branches of government to come together and to sign off on it. And there we are really dependent on cycles that go beyond, let's say, election cycles. And I think that's where we as consumers also have, we shouldn't forget that we also have a lot of power, right? How do we choose to buy our clothing? Are our fabrics that we chose to wear, are they made sustainable? I had a great conversation with the CEO of Bixumco last year in Singapore, where he said, we're not building 2 700 megawatt solar farms because the Bangladesh government has told us to do so. No, we're doing it to meet consumer demands from our clients in Europe and the US. And I think that's where every one of us in the room has a choice to make. When we go down, when we give our ballot, when we do our democracy duties, or when we shop for home appliances. I think we have to think about that as well, our own personal sort of conviction on what we can do to drive things forward.
Okay, we have a big question.
I want to add a point here. Another reason why policy stability is so important is because most of the clean tech industry is a sort of an infrastructure play as well. It's large investments. And financing these investments means de-risking. No financial institution will come forth if they are worried about a potential risk. So the first thing they do is take away the technology risk, and then they also have to ensure that the policy risk is not there. Because if somebody's going to change the plan in 5 years, this investment is a 30-year investment. So therefore, policy stability matters a lot. What exactly the policy is one part of the story, but the fact that once it's made, it remains stable is what will ensure investors and institutional capital will come in to then bring the costs down. Because ultimately, for each one of us, economics matters. But to get that price down, you need this stability.
Thank you for your answers. And while the policy matters, policy is also changeable. You can understand what I mean by reading my book. And we have a little time, so we move to this question. Based on today's discussion, what words of encouragement or key insights would you offer to Korea's newly established, which is planned to be established soon, Ministry of Climate, Energy and Environment, and to other governments worldwide as they lead transition to a more sustainable, secure, and inclusive energy future? What is your advice from Mr. Shin?
Sure. Before I give advice to newly formed government, I'd like to mention about our fundamental approach about decarbonization. I talked about it a little bit during my presentation, but from the get-go, our strategy has been we can grow and decarbonize at the same time. I think that's the key. And the rest, frankly, is details. Once we have that firmly in place, it's a matter of finding that magic equation, or finding, somebody says, the needle in a haystack. But, believe me, there are needles in the haystack, and there are ways to find those. It's not easy. But companies should strive toward finding those magic equation of growing and decarbonizing at the same time, not one at the expense of the other. I think in that regard, industry has a huge role to play. If you look at the 760-some million metric tons of CO2 coming out of Korea every year, industry is a huge part of that, as you know. So we have to step forward, working with the government, to help Korea to decarbonize. Just a couple of words about Korea. I know renewable is a difficult environment here, geographical conditions and everything else. I think we have to think about demand side of the equation a little bit in addition to the supply side. We always talk about supply. Korea needs XYZ kilowatt hour or gigawatt hour electricity, so we have to supply. Well, what about all the light? Frankly, in my office, there are, I think, 20-some light bulbs up in there, and I can make some adjustment to that. If you look at the demand side of the equation of energy, including electricity, I think 25-30% can be reduced without hurting daily operation, without hurting the life quality of public. Actually, quite easily. If you think about, we can actually reduce the demand of energy, that amount CO2 goes away. Maybe that's the best thing. It doesn't require any money, okay? Just turn out another bulb, right? So I think we have to rethink about the demand equation when you talk about national decarbonization. The only other thing I might add is the industry portfolio. The industry portfolio of Korea in 1970s are dramatically different from now. We have all this intellectual content type industry like semiconductor and others, and that will continue to evolve more from higher carbon type industry to low carbon, much more high value added industry. AI could be one of them, bio is another, So I think the portfolio of industry will naturally contribute to the reduction of CO2 as we move forward, in addition to all the things that we know to improve the grid, to enable renewable energy and to bring absolute more amount of renewable energy into equation. In addition to that, I just want to add those couple of things that I mentioned in my remark.
Mr. Rufelt?
I like the point about energy efficiency. I've got 3 kids and I feel like I'm spending all my time walking around the house turning off electrical appliances. But I mean, in terms of, I think there's a great momentum for the Korean government now, right? We're past the impeachment. We know that the government wants to double down on its targets. They've kept their NDCs. We have now seen the special bill that was discussed for a long, long time being immolated into law. It's now the special act. I'd say use the momentum. And it's not one technology at one time, it's all technologies at the same time. So make sure that it's an attractive market for venture capitalism. Make sure that it's a very attractive market for immediate deployment of existing technologies, and then invest heavily also in energy efficiency. If we do that, then I think it ties in very, very well to the fact that Korea has a world-leading export supply chain market and capabilities that can help to not only increase the energy independence and less reliance on imported fossil fuels, but actually also become an export commodity for Korea. So I would say specific advice for the Korean government, embrace the change, make it easy for us to invest.
Yeah. Good advice. Doctor?
I don't know if I'm qualified to give advice for, the government. It's such a big question. What I would say is, I would ask a question. Why is there no Korean startup that's valued over 100 billion today? We, with all due respect to LG and SK and all the big companies, we need more small companies, the little companies, to come and do more of innovation. Because sometimes the big companies, they do take risk, but the small companies take more risk. And some of these innovations are very risky. They're hard. So I encourage the Korean government to promote more entrepreneurship and more risk-taking. And I would probably say the same about Japan as well. Similar kind of entrepreneurship is needed in these companies. And I think in the end, maybe they'll get bought by LG Chem, or maybe they'll get bought by SK or Hyundai or whoever, right? But I think the core is to really encourage entrepreneurship and to fund many different types of technologies.
Entrepreneurship matters. And
no, I think absolutely lovely points made over here. I think the one point which comes to my mind, which probably has not been touched upon, very good points already made, is some sort of harmonization of the carbon trade, right? Currently, NDCs are there, but the way carbon is priced in each geography, each market is different. The ease of moving the carbon instrument is not there. There are just too many bureaucratic or otherwise bottlenecks. If we could harmonize carbon trade and carbon pricing, however you make it, either the polluter pays, the consumer pays, whatever, that is secondary. But if it's harmonized, then what happens is, then there is a sense of, a price for carbon, and with that price, then the market then follows that price and then determines innovation, investment, and everything else. So I think that is one thing, although the governments have been trying very hard to get it together, it's not happened yet.
Thank you. And we have 1 minute. Our discussion might be perfect. That's why. Okay, thank you for joining us. I look forward to insightful discussion in the near future. Thank you.